proud to be St. Martin's most watched website for news and information. We're St. Martin News Network with anchor Bibi Shaw.
Welcome to the Territorial Election Countdown. I'm Bibi Shaw and you're looking Election Watch StMaarten on smnnews.com. Today we are going to be interviewing Mr. Leopold James. He is the president of the St. Martin Nation Building Foundation. Mr. James, good morning, and how are you today?
Good morning, Bibi. How are you finding?
Well, you never lost. You're one of those people that is always available to everybody.
You don't respect my Sabbath?
No, I don't, especially when it comes to the interests of the people.
I really admire you, because not only you're bold, you come to my house and turn everything upside down and set the rules, you got courage.
I think it takes one like you, and you have helped molded me to become like that.
But you don't have to become better than me.
All right, I'm working on it.
Okay.
All right, Leopold, today we are focusing on some of the issues facing St. Martin. I know you've been an activist, one of those persons who have been...
I'm not dead yet, I'm not dead yet.
You are an activist, I should say. And one of the things that you've been trying to do in St. Martin is focus on nation building. Today we have at least 6 political lists that is vying for the March 18 Territorial Council election. What's your views on that?
Well, what shall I say? As you said, my focus is always the same and is very clear, I would like to believe. And I could understand that it's extremely boring for a lot of people, because whenever they see this ugly face, right, it's the same old story, So whenever they see this face, they should expect the same old story. My position is based on the fact that I am the president, the founding president, as a matter of fact, of the grassroots StMaarten movement, which is a grassroots people's movement, and which has its base on the Dutch side officially, and it's established as the StMaarten Nation Building Foundation on the Dutch side. On the French side, it's established as the Association l'Esprit de Concordia. Those are the official names, but we represent the grassroots StMaarten people. Those are the people that your governments do not know that they exist, you see?
My government.
Your government.
What about your government? It's our government.
We happen to be our government now, you see? I am the president, and I'm very proud to be the president of those people whose ancestors actually built this country in terms of establishing it in the transition from slavery. So that was basically a nation building step, because during slavery there was no freedom, so people were not free to move around, let alone free to interact socially with whoever they wanted. So once slavery was abolished, basically you could say we had a free society. So
and now we are able to have elections.
Okay, we were able to have a free society. So for us, it was when the StMaarten nation building process started, and where our ancestors played their role. We as a StMaarten people, we over the years, on both sides of the island, we have paid a price for our success, because our success has allowed for us to become a tremendous numerical minority in our country, and consequently most politicians, and I'm sorry to say, I qualify, unless they deny that, I qualify most of our politicians as traitors of StMaarten, and because they have betrayed the StMaarten people for politically correct reasons. Because with the development of StMaarten, as I said, StMaarten just had no policy, no vision at all in terms of where it wanted to go and what it wanted. So StMaarten became a territory where people could come from anywhere in the world, in any numbers, with any type of background, and just come to StMaarten and break every law that we have, and over time get the same rights in terms of nationality as the StMaartens. And there is where we're at the moment. And what our politicians have done, they have been politically very correct, because they have realized that to get elected on short term, all they had to do was to betray the StMaarten people, and not only betray the StMaarten people, but lie to the people that came in. And that's the sad part of it, basically. So they lied, in order to get elected. So, but fortunately, I have to say this, sorry to cut you off, fortunately I have to say that there is a big change taking place on StMaarten, and I'm not surprised in a way that you come and visit me, even if it's on Sunday, because I'm sure you get the feedback too that there is a restiveness on StMaarten right now, not only among StMaarten people, but among a lot of people on StMaarten who care for StMaarten. And that is a sad part, because we believe that charity should start at home for anybody, so also for the StMaarten people in their home, in their ancestral home. At the same time, our movement promotes inclusion of everybody who respects us and who wants to be part of us, because for us, the concept of nation building is based on two main pillars. One is preserving self, and the other one, in order to grow, right, is to allow people, after all, I'm a biologist too, you understand? If you don't allow for input of new blood, you stagnate, right?
That's true, Leopold, and I know most of what you have been fighting for. But today, on this program especially, we want to focus a little bit on the election.
Okay.
What do we tell our people? How do we advise them? What is the economic situation on the French side? Because I know you're French also. You're not only Dutch.
I'm not French. I'm a StMaartener who has, let me correct you here, I'm a StMaartener who has the Dutch and French nationality. That's completely different in my books than being French. I'm not French.
So then you're from both sides of the island.
I'm from the island.
And then you have, when you said you are from the island, I'm sure you have interest on both sides, and you care for what happened on both sides.
I am one of those StMaarteners who is the very embodiment of the spirit of StMaarten. Right? A lot of people when they come to StMaarten, and I understand that, because they don't know otherwise, is they ask what part of StMaarten you're from. Then you know you're not from StMaarten to ask a question like that. Because a StMaartener is from StMaarten. You understand?
Whether French or Dutch.
StMaartens are from StMaarten. It's only since immigrants came here, the last 30 odd years, we started talking about Dutch and French StMaarten. We now talk about Dutch and French StMaarten. As a matter of fact, back then, StMaarten never even had a passport, because it was so obvious that it belonged to us. Okay. You understand? That was our way of life, which is based on the Treaty of Concordia, which is law basically. And we as StMaarteners, we as native StMaarteners, we are the very embodiment, of the Treaty of Concordia. So we are the living, spirit of the Treaty of Concordia. It cannot get more Treaty of Concordia than when you're talking and you're meeting StMaarten people.
Let me go back, and like I said, I really want to focus on the election a little bit, and because it is an election countdown program.
Yes.
We have 6 lists that might be contesting this election.
No. Well, with all due respect, I happen to, and I don't want to jump the gun, but basically, I think it's going to boil down to having basically 2 lists or 2 systems. One is politicians who are traitors, right? Other politicians who come from the outside, and who want to basically build your nation on StMaarten, right? And then you have at least one or two persons, right, who represent StMaarten people. For me, there is no 6 lists or whatever, because most of the people on those lists, they all are traitors when it comes to the StMaarten cause. So for us, it's not all the same. You know, just like on the
They
that
might
side,
not be all the same, but we were going to have six group of people.
Listen, as a movement,
are going to be popular.
As a movement, we want to make it very, very, very clear. You're either for the StMaarten people or you're not for the StMaarten people.
And if they don't choose, what would you do then? If they don't choose, what can you do?
We are going to do what we have to do. We are there to promote the StMaarten people in the first place, as I said, you know, as part of the nation building process. So not only, for the sake of preserving and protecting StMaarten people, but as part of something bigger, you know, meaning including others as well, because we have to understand, you know, and all people that live here on StMaarten, that come from other countries, have to realize too that, you know, they cannot have any sustainable future on StMaarten if we don't have a proper foundation. It's simple as that.
Yes. You said StMaarten was one. There was one people. It is the foreigners maybe who came and talk about French and Dutch and two different sides.
And a lot of our politicians do it, I have to admit.
Yes, let me get to the point.
Sure.
But when you have 6 groups of people going to the polls, representing themselves and representing whatever ideas they might have, haven't you seen a division among families within the political sphere? I can tell you there are 2 lists with one brother on one list and one sister on another list.
I know exactly.
So where does this division come in, and why do we have a division?
Bibi, just a minute. I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, I'm a StMaarten. I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, but at the same time, right? For me, it's at this present moment, it's more important to focus on what we as StMaarten people, you know, have to do to survive as a people and to be part of something bigger than us, which is the nation building process. So I have no time to waste, you know, on focusing on things that in the bigger scheme of things are completely irrelevant. You know, the smaller the scheme becomes, the more relevant it becomes. But for me at present, where StMaarten is at a crossroads. StMaarten is at an immense crossroads, right? You pick it up all over on the island, you know, and what you hear more and more, and politicians cannot get around that, StMaarten people for the very first time, and I feel proud that our movement played a big role in that. StMaarten people are realizing when it's all said and done, all the big projects, all the ambitious projects is all fine and well, great environment, but where do we fit in, if we fit in at all? So the key question is, you know, just like the Bible, you know, the Bible starts with Genesis. It doesn't start with Matthew or it starts with Genesis. You know, it starts with identifying who you are as a people and where you want to go. You see? And that is the key question. The key question in every politician, every political party is going to have to deal with a restive StMaarten population that is getting very upset. It's getting very, very upset. And the point is, and that is so sad, we recognize that there are others, you know, there are many kids that are not of StMaarten heritage that were born here, and, you know, we are realistic enough to realize that we have to find a way to deal with them one way or the other. Either they go back where they come from, or they become part of us. I mean, that's the bottom line. That is the bottom line.
How are we going to work on integration? When are we going to accept them?
When we work, integration says it exactly. Integration, inclusion, basically, basically imply the same thing, and one condition for sure they imply. If I only can talk about inclusion if I assume, you know, that there is something to be included to. Because I can't include to nothing, right? So that means that there's something, you know, there to be added to. You know, including means adding, nothing else, you know. So what we are saying, you know, the quicker people realize, and our StMaarten people realize, and others as well, listen, let's be honest. Let's for a change stop being politically incorrect and messed up for our children in the future. Let's be honest, and, you know, if we talk about developing a country, let's have the courage and the intelligence to deal with the issues that are not necessarily easy, that we don't even have the answer for. But one thing we know, that by not addressing these issues, we are just basically passing those problems on to the next generation, and they are going to become more complex. So right now, more important than anything else on StMaarten, period, is is the host-guest relationship. Issues like integration, you know, who you build this country for, who are the people of this country, what is so difficult to accept that StMaarten had a history and to have, you know, as a consequence of that, the people of StMaarten heritage should have a place, you know, a very important place in their own country. I don't see what's so difficult about that.
I don't know if it's difficult, but you've been trying for